Hello, DevOps friends! This is Full Stack Live, my live coding channel, and I'm Jochen, the Monospace Mentor. Welcome! Welcome. I am still alive, even though I didn't do lots of streams lately this week due to being completely destroyed and spending most of my days sleeping, and last week with conference preparations followed by an actual conference visit over the weekend. I was in Hamburg to attend Ruby Unconf 2024, and it was a great event. I had so much fun. Lots of great people, very friendly atmosphere. I really liked it, and met so many people, talked to many people, met people who I already was in contact with via Mastodon, and actually after I arrived in Hamburg on Friday evening, I decided to spontaneously prepare a talk suggestion at least. And as these unconferences work, you propose your talk at the beginning of the conference, people vote which talks they'd like to attend, and from that then the organizers create the actual schedule. There are no invited speakers apart from Eileen Ushitel, who actually gave the keynote at the beginning of the conference, which was awesome as well. Having a a Rails core member giving the keynote was, of course, awesome too. And yeah, my talk got a lot of great feedback. They had to add another sheet of paper to make more space for the heart stickers that we use to vote for our favorite talks. And in the afternoon, I gave my talk about infrastructure as Ruby code. I told a bunch of mostly Rails developers that there are other things that you can do with Ruby as well, and it went over greatly. Even though I only had prepared the slides the evening before and I didn't really rehearse the talk, I was able to make a point landing at the 30-minute mark, did a short Q&A, and then enjoyed people approaching me with questions and suggestions and all kinds of stuff. And this was so much fun. I have to say, being an introvert is really it's really much easier if you give a talk, because then people come to you and it doesn't require you to approach people yourself, which for me is always a huge barrier, to be honest, especially if I'm tired or find other excuses. That's what made DevOps days in Berlin not that much of a success for me, because the talks didn't really speak to me, and I didn't approach anyone apart from 2 or 3 people, and so I didn't get many conversations myself and left pretty frustrated. And this time it was completely different. Exegete marks Ruby is not Rails. That is correct. I apologize for misspeaking. Of course, I meant a Rails core team member. So yeah, it was a great weekend, but I had to pay a price, because when it was time to fly back here to Ireland on Monday morning, I felt completely broken and tired and defeated and exhausted, and it only got worse until my flight finally arrived, which was an hour late, and then of course I missed my bus and had to wait for 2 more hours at the airport to get home. And by the time I came home, I was really exhausted and just went straight to bed at 7 p.m. and basically didn't leave bed until yesterday afternoon. And that wasn't because of the oh yeah, I see. Yeah, that's a great point, Exegete. But I knew that most of the people that were attending RubyOnConf would probably be Rails developers. So and I was right. Many of them didn't even know that there is infrastructure as code frameworks based on Ruby, such as Chef or Sync. I was tempted to do another talk the next day about Dragon Ruby for the same reason. But then I thought, first of all, it wouldn't be fair to other speakers who wanted to still give one talk at least. And so me hogging the stage would probably not be really fair. And also I already felt that my energy was waning. So I decided not to prepare another late night talk and even put more pressure on me as I already had. And yeah, pressure is what basically broke me. I simply pushed myself too hard in recent weeks with Monospace Mentor, my related newsletter, news from the server room, all these things, community events that I had been organizing. And if you're interested in our community, check out theserverroom.com. It's a membership community with very moderate entry fees, and we're doing a lot of great stuff. It's a great bunch of people, including Exegete, and so I can only recommend joining the bunch and have conversations and learn about DevOps and software engineering and system administration and all these things. After pushing myself so hard for quite a while, my body once again said, yeah, buddy, it's good, and let's lay down now and let's recover a little bit, which I did for a few days. But I wanted to get at least this office hour done. Office hour, what does that mean? Office hour means that I stop talking now and that you go to qa.monospacementor.com, where you can enter questions about software engineering, questions about how to do stuff on Linux, questions about your IT career. Any questions that I might be able to answer is welcome. You can post them over there. You can also upvote other people's questions, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. That's the actual purpose of this office hour, and so I'll get quiet now and wait for your questions to come in, and then we'll tackle them one by one. First, my question to you, are you all right? How has your week been? Have you doing as poorly as I did, or did you have something that made you excited, something that made you happy? Post that in chat and we can have a conversation there, but don't forget to go to qa.monospacementor.com for your questions, because then I can get them on screen nicely, so people who are just joining the stream can actually tell, can actually see the context in which I'm talking right now. And that's why I install qa.monospacementor.com. Exegete, how has your week been? Epic Ninja Elephant, hello, welcome to the stream. Do you have any questions? Post them to qa.monospacementor.com. And happy Friday to you too. I actually have a happy Friday. I had quite some time to recover now. I probably slept for 14 to 18 hours per day from Tuesday to Thursday. Didn't leave the bed much. Was like always when I'm burnt out, it's like onset of flu, when you're really tired and your head is throbbing and your whole body is aching, but too weak to do anything. That's how I felt these recent days, and that always is a clear sign for me that I've overdone it again. And as Exegete mentions, sleep. I'm sad to read that you didn't have the greatest of weeks. Sleep deprivation is another thing. I did not get to bed early enough most days, and that definitely also depleted my batteries. And that's a real bummer if someone you were mentoring is let go. That's always sad. I can see why you feel you should have done more. But be kind to yourself. You know, I'm not sure if you did get any glimpse into the reasoning why they were let go, but yeah. As far as I know you, you probably did not slack off in terms of mentoring and supporting them. So I don't think there's much reason to blame yourself for what happened. And yes, we could always do more, and that's what I've been trying in recent weeks, and you see where it got me. If we break ourselves, no one really benefits from that, not even ourselves. Buzz, hello, welcome to the Stack, and welcome to my office hour. The office hour is where I am leaning back without any content in hand, simply waiting for you to post questions at qa.monospacementor.com. I can get them on screen and hopefully answered. So if you have any questions about system administration, Linux stuff, open source software, Ruby coding, software engineering in general, IT career, all these things, I'm happy to take a stab at your questions and see if I can give you a helpful answer. Greetings to Nepal. Actually, it says, I've been there. I was assigned a person to mentor, and after 6 months, when we didn't know what to do, it was revealed to us the person had attended a school for Asperger's people, and they couldn't handle him. Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. It is simply a different thing when it's about people, isn't it? I mean, technology is so easy compared to that. Handling people, handling them right, with everyone being an individual with their own needs and desires. This is really tough, regardless if you are a manager or if you're just a colleague and peer. I think it's part of becoming more senior, and especially a mandatory part of being a manager, to be able to cope with failures like these, to be able to say, okay, yeah, we couldn't keep that person, we couldn't meet their demands, or they simply weren't able to meet ours, and be content with that. Probably not happy, but at least be able to live with it. And yeah. Hey Moo, how you doing? Welcome to the Stack. So there is a question over on qa.monospacementor.com. Give us an IOC hot take and IOC. I almost read it as infrastructure as code, but it's Internet of what? What is IOC? Am I blanking now? Give me a hint in chat. IOC? The International Olympic Committee? Infusion of coffee? IAC, okay. I was confused there for a moment, but most of the times it's something that went straight over my head. An infrastructure as code hot take? I don't have so much as a hot take as probably infrastructure as code is still relevant. And that might have become an unpopular opinion, because with all the stuff that we have now with Terraform and other stuff. I would like to recommend one of the latest videos of the YouTube channel DevOps Toolkit, where Viktor Farcic takes a great point where he basically compares Ansible and Terraform and Pulumi and does a nice separation of concerns, what these tools are supposed to do, where they might overlap, and how to actually not play them against each other, but combine them to get your stuff done. And I found that a very reasonable take, not a hot take at all. And I just want to amplify that it's definitely something that is still useful. And then again, as Viktor says himself, infrastructure as code isn't really well-defined anyway, because nowadays it seems like Terraform and these more descriptive or declarative ways of building infrastructure are supposed to be infrastructure as code. But the stuff that I've been doing for 14 years now, using Ruby to automate servers in our managed hosting platform that Moo and I are mostly running, has been infrastructure as code as well. So there is not only an overlap between these tools, but also a gray area how they are defined. Epic Ninja Elephant says, based on beard colors for Sakaivan, I about the same age. That might actually be. I'll tell you that. In Unix time, I was born on day 49. About the same age, I started with IRC using shell scripts and CVS back in the day. Actually, that is true. Even that way of administering and automating stuff, you could actually use the term infrastructure as code there as well. Nowadays, no, I was actually, since you mentioned CVS, which is, for the uninitiated, was an early version control system. You basically practiced all the common practices of infrastructure as code even back then, with having your own shell code and having versioning and the history of your changes and things like that. So in all actuality, yeah, that applies as well. Nowadays, it's something like Puppet or Chef or Ansible with a Git repository. But yeah, that you are perfectly right and have a great point. They go on to say, I remember when CF Engine came along and it wasn't worth the effort to migrate. Yeah, another thing with CF Engine as well was I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. I took a look at CF Engine and I thought, okay, Mark Burgess is just a genius and I'm simply too stupid to understand what he's doing there. And I left it at that. And I was really happy to see that there was an alternative coming on with Chef. I started using Chef in version 0.9, and that was a tool that I understood, and the rest is history. But I never got into CF Engine. That was a completely, that was a book with 7 seals, as they say in Germany. It was so complex, exactly. So yeah, that's my infrastructure as code hot take. The more traditional tools still have their places. If you have just joined us, this is the Monospace Mentor Office Hour. Post your questions to qa.monospacementor.com and I'll try to answer them. Epic Ninja Elephant says, I used Ansible for many years too, slowly winding it down because IBM. Are you actually concerned about the influence of IBM on Red Hat and therefore on Ansible? I might be deluding myself. I'm still a very happy user of Fedora, or Bluefin for that regard, but it's based on Fedora Silverblue. And I'm getting more and more into Ansible, actually. I guess hope carries all these efforts. Not. But yeah, I can't say with confidence that these tools are going to be around forever. And that's actually true, yeah. I have the same feeling about Ubuntu at the moment. You can't predict when they stop development or do weird license things or, yeah, doing something completely silly. I feel the same way about Ubuntu. We've been using Ubuntu LTS for our servers forever, since the beginning, because it's so convenient having 5-year lifetime of the distribution. With Red Hat, for example, doing their shenanigans, when was it, end of last year, I got the same fear myself where I said, okay, what happens if Ubuntu now is next in doing something silly again? And thankfully, I don't think that switching from Ubuntu to Debian would be too much effort. It would definitely be less effort than, say, switch to a Fedora-based distribution. So I'm not too anxious about it, but I definitely have my concerns. And so I can see why you have yours about Red Hat too. Actually asks OpenTofu because of IBM too. That's a valid stance. However, in that case, it could go the other way as well. If IBM wants to do that, they could actually give Terraform back to the community by another license change. It wouldn't disrupt things much more than they are disrupted already. So IBM supporting a re-merging of OpenTofu and Terraform is a possibility as well. I won't bet on the probability, but it's definitely a possibility. Epic Ninja Elephant says, I've been meaning to check if PyInfra can replace Ansible for my network devices. I have never looked into PyInfra, but that's definitely a great point and something to research, I guess. Hello, Pettywise, welcome to the stack, welcome, welcome. If you have any questions, and since this is my office hour, it's up to you to do the program here. Excuse me. I only ask questions that you posted to qa.monospacementor.com, and so post your questions there and I'll make an effort of trying to answer them. And we have another question over there. What was your first Linux distro? Mine was Slackware. My first Linux distribution was SUSE Linux. I'm German. I started my IT career in Germany, and SUSE being the prodigal German Linux distribution company, I got my hands on a CD-ROM pack of SUSE Linux. They didn't even have version numbers back then. It was just SUSE Linux March 1993 or something like that, that's when I tried my first Linux distribution, and it was great fun because at that time I was studying computer science, so it did actually accompany a few interesting things where we talked about specific stuff in our lectures, and being able to see how things are actually implemented on a Linux system was quite interesting. And from SUSE Linux, I eventually then switched to Ubuntu, especially when it came to run my first own internet server, which I actually set up as a small mini tower computer at home, installed Ubuntu, installed everything I wanted on there, and then I packed it in the trunk of my car, drove it to the hosting provider in the nearest city, and then I put it in their back room, which was their initial data center, which was just a small office room with shelves in it and an AC unit. And I put my mini tower on a shelf, plugged in Ethernet and power, and my first Linux server was online on the internet. That provider then grew quite a lot over the years, and about 7-8 years later, I joined them as an IT manager, actually. Pennywise says, cool hair, you remind me of Vesemir from Witcher. It's actually not a coincidence, I'll admit. Keep your questions coming. Post them to qa.monospacementor.com. I was again late to the game when it came to watching The Witcher, and I watched it, I don't know, end of last year, beginning of this year, can't quite remember. And when I saw Vesemir, I thought, okay, you can still look like a badass in later age. So yeah, that's what I went for. Exactly! Throw a coin to your streamer. But before you do that, there is a great way you can actually spend money on supporting me and yourself at the same time. So if you actually want to support me financially, I would actually recommend taking a look at the server room, my community of practice, which is a membership community with very reasonable membership fees. We have great people there like Exegete and other regulars on this stream, and it's a great place to learn about DevOps, about system administration, and we do all kinds of events. We just recently, earlier this week actually, we had our community hangout where we simply hopped on a call and talked about all kinds of stuff. And soon there's going to be another deep dive where I take a topic and basically do an interactive talk about it for the community. We'll also have a hot seat where a community member presents a challenge they're having or a project they'd like feedback on. And all the participants of that session can then weigh in and give their feedback and tips and advice. So that's always great. It's a great supportive community, friendly and safe. And we are completely free of, well, actually. And so if you actually want to throw a coin my way, I think the serverroom.sh is a great place to do so. Actually, it says the grey is still slowly seeping into my hair. I wish it would make up its mind and either go grey or not. I think we all know how this is going to end up eventually, so be patient. qa.monospacementor.com is where you can post your questions. And there is another question, so let me get that on screen here. Did you ever program something cool in C? Important, not C++, just the good old C language. I'm not sure if it was cool. I'll let others decide. But actually, I did my final thesis in programming in C. The thesis was about merging three-dimensional point clouds. Yeah. Period. Merging three-dimensional point clouds. I was working at a research institute, and we all had...
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Unix systems? Hey, Wizard Fingers, welcome to the stack. We did actually have a bunch of SGI, Silicon Graphics, Unix systems at our disposal where we all worked as a team on a 3D modeling software. Not your usual modeling and animation software, similar to, say, Blender or 3D Studio or something like that. It was more of a general 3D modeling software, and I actually developed a module for that software that was able to merge overlapping point clouds. So what this software often did was ingest point clouds that came from, say, a laser scanner, who only gives you single points in space, and the software then would have to turn these point clouds into triangulated surfaces. And the software then allowed the operator to correct stuff where the software did guess wrong and connected the wrong points and things like that. And it was my task to find an algorithm to basically merge point clouds that came from measuring in precisions, and where these surfaces should actually be the same and overlapping, but instead they were displaced by a millimeter or something, which happens, for example, if You have a very cheap laser scanner that can only scan from one side, and the model that you're scanning has to rotate on a table or something. Then it gets moved a little bit, and then everything is off a little bit. And so that's where I did program a lot of C, and did a lot of make invocations and things like that. But it was just great fun. We had a great team. We had also international people, exchange students from the UK, and I learned a lot of stuff there about professional software engineering. And of course, working on silicon graphics machines back in the 90s was just the thing. That really warmed my nerd heart every time I hopped in the car to go there. That's an interesting question. Is there anything you don't like about your job? So at the moment, I have one main job, which is working on our managed hosting platform. And that's something I've been doing with Move for about 14 years now, and I really like what we're doing there. Because we've picked it ourselves, I guess we can't complain much, and we could leave it if it was too bad. But of course, there are also things that I don't like about it. Getting paged at night when I'm on call is, of course, inconvenient. Getting paged for things that might be transient, for example, where a cloud instance goes down and you get paged because some server went offline, and you know pretty well it'll be back online in a few minutes' time because the data center will take care of that automatically. That's always a little bit frustrating, but I could have it much, much worse. I worked as a corporate IT manager back in the day, and I saw how bad it can be, both for the individual contributors as well as for us managers. At times I did more filling out Excel sheets than doing actual people management. And that frustrated me to no end. So I'd take the occasional call at night, even if it's unnecessary anytime. My side job is Monospace Mentor, which I only started recently, where I try to get back into teaching because I simply want to share my experience and the know-how I've accumulated over decades. And it was my decision to start another endeavor on top of what I already had. And even though that is a strain eventually and leads to sadder outcomes like me having to go horizontal for almost a whole week, like it happened this week, that's on me and on me alone. And that's stuff that I need to learn how to really manage my energy and my resources better. I'm really struggling to come up with something that isn't completely trivial. Yes, I do realize that I'm very privileged in that way. But that's the, I guess that's the yield I get from taking the risk of building my own company, going through a lot of really, really tough times. And now, after more than a decade of doing things, I can take things a little bit more easy and lean back a little bit more. I should actually do lean back a little bit more, coming to say it. I'm happy that way. And I guess, at least in part, I deserve that as well. Interesting question, and of course a very timely question is, as a DevOps person, what benefits do you get from AI tools? At the moment, none, to be honest. I can't think of anything where AI tools would really help me at the moment. I would assume that once we get more specialized AI tools or machine learning tools, things like interpreting metrics and stuff like that should get easier. At the moment, if you look at system metrics like CPU load or things like that, sometimes it's very easy to pinpoint patterns or see specific issues where every hour on the hour CPU load goes up and stuff starts breaking down, and then after a few minutes things recover again. That of course is an easy hint that maybe you should check your cron jobs or something like that, because if it's that on really specific intervals, it must be some kind of a timed job or something, even in your infrastructure or even on the outside. Sometimes it's just a customer doing stuff in a scheduled way themselves, but that's easy to determine. But there are more complex patterns that are really hard to see, where it's really hard to see the signal and separate it from the noise. And I think feeding lots of metrics into a machine learning system that is specialized on digesting things like that, and then pointing out that there is actually something interesting if you subtract some stuff here and then just isolate this particular metric, and then you see that 5 minutes after there's a spike on this metric, there's a spike on another metric, so things might be related there. Which you might find if you are spending hours on watching graphs and crunching numbers. That's why I think machine learning tools can really help in DevOps. But I don't expect our current language-based models to help in that in a really helpful way. Because they are, at the moment, the most interesting AI, and I really am using quotes here, tools are focused on language and images and maybe even audio and video stuff. But I would rather have a machine learning model where I can, for example, have it ingest all our Prometheus metrics and then tell us what's wrong. That would be great. That would actually excite me. Wizard Fingers shared, I just learned about data annotation, which is interesting. Tell us more. Don't hold back. If there's something that excites you, if you want to share something with the community, simply post it to chat. You can also post links to chat if you like. My only policy in that regard is posting links is open. If you abuse this privilege, you get banned. That's all. And of course, again, qa.monospacementor.com is where you can actually fill this panel with your questions, and I'll do my best to take care and answer them. Jogging Coffee says, Happy Friday, humans. Happy Friday back to you. Early this morning, and yeah, your name just reminded me of it, I discovered Death Wish Coffee, and they have quite a bunch of hilarious motivational posters on their website, some of which I really want a t-shirt of. And so let me see, I copied some of them to my image gallery actually. If I can find my image gallery, that is. Yeah, here we go. So stuff like this, for example. Or if you want a more environmental take, something that definitely also applies to me. Or let's talk about nutrition. So yeah, there are some. One last one. Two last ones. This definitely applies to IT. And finally, a prayer we should all take to heart. Okay, got distracted completely. Just by chugging coffee, joining the stream. Let's see, there's another question. Is there anything you can share to someone in a system administration role that would like to getting into Linux administration / DevOps role? Of course I can. Give me just a second to hydrate. So, I mean, it's a natural progression from doing pure system administration to something like DevOps, because as a system administrator, you're already taking care of the operation side of things. So now it's time to add the development side of things as well. And eventually, if you continue leveling up both your ops skills and your dev skills, you'll basically end up as a SRE, as a site reliability engineer, because that's basically the full mix of software engineering combined with operational excellence. So a next step would definitely be learning a programming language, and especially learning the engineering principles that go into software development. And that's completely independent of which language you choose. But of course, if we are talking about DevOps, there are a few languages that are more popular and more helpful than others. While you can acquire software engineering skills using any current or even more ancient language, for example, I'd imagine you can also acquire software engineering skills by programming Ada, and people are doing it to this day, especially in avionics and things like that. But of course, doing something like Python, if it's about a scripting language, or if you want a compiled language, then Go would probably be a good opportunity. Rust is always in the mix as well. So learning one of these languages and learning about software engineering, about design patterns, about maybe object-oriented design, things like that, is definitely the one of the next important steps if you are already in system administration. And applying the software engineering skills to your system administration then gets you into DevOps as well, because it'll allow you to automate the stuff that you might have been doing manually. Just earlier in the stream, we discussed about starting out automating stuff with bash scripts. So shell scripting is already a very low level of software engineering. Unfortunately, all the usual shell scripting languages aren't really conducive to doing real programming. Maybe something like GNU Shell is an exception to that, but that's a very niche language in itself. And learning a scripting language like Python or Ruby, I will, of course, always recommend Ruby, is definitely a good choice. Or if you want to use a compiled language, Go might be interesting because all the stuff in the Kubernetes world is written in Go. On the other hand, all the new command line tools that are coming out for Linux and Unix are built with Rust. So you have a lot of choice where you can also let your individual preferences come in and choose something that tickles your fancy. And so after using shell scripts to automate stuff, you can then go on to maybe using Ruby to automate stuff, or go right ahead starting to use configuration management software such as Ansible, where you automate stuff on a larger scale, where you can handle multiple servers at the same time, where you can group servers into different roles and things like that, and go on from there. And of course, the whole area is huge. You will probably want to get your Docker skills up, things like that. The roadmap to full DevOps is definitely huge, and would definitely take me another 2 hours to talk about that. And I should probably do something like a course about this, only I need to improve my time and energy management to do so. But that's my initial answer to your question. If you're already in system administration, then focus on the automation side of things, using shell scripting, scripting languages, compiled languages, configuration management tools, and things like that. And that'll get you nicely on the way. Here's another question, and let me take a look at the clock. The office hour is almost over, but I did talk a lot at the top of the stream, so let's keep going for a while longer. The current question is, if you're a candidate in the market with infra cloud, DevOps, SRE background, beyond just specifying highlights of job projects achieved, how do you represent your knowledge on your resume? I'd like to try to show I've done X and I know Y, but want to avoid more than 3-page resumes since recruiters don't have the attention span for more. That's a tough one. Not only because it seems to be very varied between countries, what recruiters find essential. So maybe in the US things might be a little bit different than over here in the in Europe. And I can see your dilemma there. On the one hand, you want to show that you have a broad spectrum of skills, that you've done a lot of things, that you've seen things that others can only dream about. But you also don't want to hand over the Sears catalog of DevOps knowledge. I would probably cater to what the company, the organization you're applying to, is interested in, and highlight these things. Instead of saying, I've done lots of stuff, pick what you find interesting, find out what they are interested in first, and then highlight these things. And basically be prepared to kill a few of your darlings and leave them off because they might not be relevant to that particular organization.
I know this.
Tyler, welcome to the stack. Thank you for your follow. I think that might be a way to find the middle ground between spamming them with all the stuff that you've done and not getting over why you might be valuable for them. That's my initial answer here. I'm not sure if that's helpful for you. If it's not, keep asking. Maybe elaborate a bit on where your issue is exactly, and maybe we can get into that a little bit more. And by the way, if people want to do something more intensive, where I can actually work with them over a longer period of time on a one-to-one basis, I do offer mentorships. So if you'd like, you can actually get a membership on the serverroom.sh, and things like figuring out resumes and fine-tuning applications and things like that is definitely part of what I do as a mentor. So that's definitely also a possibility here. Aha! There's another entrepreneur asking interesting questions. In your current business, do you see any market opportunities for a startup that you're willing to share? Oh, always willing to share, because I'm busy as I am. I just am getting my own teaching and mentorship business off the ground on top of my already quite taxing job running a managed hosting company. So if there are any opportunities for another startup or so, I'm more than happy to share, because it's actually not the idea that's relevant, it's the execution. And since I'm not able to execute on those ideas anyway, I'm happy to share. Let me think if there's anything that I can see at the moment where there might be a niche or something that you could go into. Well, one kind of niche that I see at the moment is, and I can't back it up scientifically, it's my very own perception, that is kind of limited by my bubble of social contacts, but, well, let me put it out there anyway. What I can see is that people get more interested in becoming independent of big tech. Sometimes it's simply about experiences like being locked out of Google for some reason that you'll never know about, but now you're locked out and you can't access your Google Docs anymore, or something like that, where people want to be more independent and masters of their own fate. And sometimes it's, of course, for more ideological reasons, because people don't want to have their content scraped by large language models without consent. People want to be spied upon for advertisement information or things like that. I mean, in the IT bubble itself, it's definitely more prevalent, but I can already see normal people turning on this tangent as well. What does that mean? It means that people will either want to take things in their own hands themselves, which is definitely motivation for me to offer courses about running your own web server, hosting your own WordPress website for your small shop or something like that. Teaching people how to administer Linux in a very basic way, so they can simply get their workstation running, where they can then use open source tools instead of subscribing to Office 365, things like that. So there's definitely an opportunity to go into education in this regard. But there's also the service side of things, where if people don't want to host their email with Google anymore, where else would they go? I mean, there are a few alternatives, of course, and most of them are great. Well-known alternatives, I mean, but I do think that having a trusted service provider who's based locally, for example, could again become very valuable in the future, where people actually are willing to say, let's go to service provider next town. They are well known for their web hosting, for their email hosting or things like that. Or maybe for something more specific. And instead of going to big tech, because we can't do that for privacy reasons or other things. So I'm definitely not anti-business here by saying stuff needs to be free and everyone should host their own mail server for free, and because they can get Linux for free and install Postfix for free. There need to be service providers who know what they're doing, but those can be small service providers that maybe just cover a small region, a town, or a city, and make themselves a name in providing that particular service. Even though it competes with big tech, the market for people competing with big tech might actually become bigger than we are still anticipating, and so there might actually be a movement back towards where we started out, with small regional companies that provided services on the internet before everything got drowned out by the big ones. So this is definitely maybe not yet a market opportunity, because that market is still emerging, but I have a feeling that in the next 10 years it will actually emerge in a very visible way, where people will be looking for alternatives to the crap that big tech is trying to sell them. I'm very happy to see ITSAP, and I'm very happy to see that they agree with me. I think I've seen similar subtle trends. Yeah, I think they might still be subtle, and I did coach my perspective with, I didn't do any market research or something like that, but what I can see is definitely beyond just my bubble of hardcore IT people. Yeah, I'm hopeful for this becoming more of a trend, actually. Actually, it said spied upon as a cue. Makes me think of Windows Recall, terrifying tech. Yeah, you can only ask what were they thinking. There's only one specific thing where most pundits were wrong, where they said, yeah, Recall spies on everything except the stuff that is intellectual property by video businesses, because stuff like Netflix, when you're watching Netflix on your computer, that won't get recorded by Recall, but that's actually just a technical limitation. Because the content owners actually made it this way that streaming video has to go directly to the graphics card, and only there gets composited on the actual video that's coming from the operating system. So nothing, including the operating system, can ever get hold of that video content, except if it intercepts the streams to the graphics card, of course, but that would be then against all contracts they are having with content owners. So if Recall could, it would also record your Netflix or other video consumption. It's just that it can't for technical reasons. Yeah, otherwise Recall is really, really terrible, and I have no idea why Microsoft would do something like that without anticipating the uproar. Because it's not only just us lefty IT people It's every company that has to adhere to regulations such as HIPAA or something like that. You can't just have your very sensitive information having recorded on disk and not knowing how to get rid of it, or having even to anticipate that it gets stolen or something. That's completely mind-boggling. I have really no idea how that ever got out into the wild. But it's exactly what I meant with people waking up and seeing, yeah, we need to find alternatives, because all these tech companies are going completely bonkers. Wizard Finger says, I remember this being a talk all the way back when I used to receive Ubuntu CDs in the mail. I just started getting back into using Linux, and it seems very bright. Yeah, I've only been using Linux as my desktop operating system for a few years now, and I got there on a very roundabout way. I was a Mac fan for quite a while, for more than a decade, because everything just worked and it was beautiful and the hardware was great and so on, of course. And then I got fed up with every upgrade breaking my setup and things like that. And I thought, well, I wanted to have an NVIDIA card anyway. Because the graphics cards that you could get even with the high-end machines were really nothing to write home about. And so I got myself a gaming laptop with an NVIDIA card in it, and it came with Windows, of course. I tried out WSL, and yeah, it was nice, but it wasn't too great, and the whole experience wasn't too great. It wasn't bad, but it was less than I wanted for myself. I did install Linux as a dual boot, and so I could switch to Linux for development stuff and maybe do graphic stuff with the Affinity Suite on Windows, or run World of Warcraft on Windows, or things like that. And more and more I found myself using Linux for all these things. I realized I could run World of Warcraft on Linux as well, and all these things. And the amount of stuff that I needed Windows for got smaller and smaller and smaller. And by now, I'm running all my workstations, all my laptops on Bluefin, which is a version of Fedora Silverblue Linux. And I have a small Windows VM for the last few things that can only happen in Windows. And I only spin this VM up on maybe once or twice a month. And so, yeah, I'm a very happy Linux user. And I think now Linux has a great opportunity to become more of an alternative to the established operating systems as well. Hey Craig, I think you already did post that question on qa.monospacementor.com, and I did answer that a few minutes back. I'll not be able to repeat everything I said, but there's always the VOD that you can get over on... no, you'll get a recording on YouTube as well, so you can actually... Can't you just go back and rewatch what I was answering? I think on YouTube you can actually go right back and do that immediately. But of course you can also do it after this stream, so you don't miss anything I'm going to say after this here. Exodite, you're breaking my heart. You're now the second person that tells me they have issues with Bluefin, and that they're thinking about using PopOS instead. Not that PopOS isn't a great alternative. I did install PopOS as my first Linux on the desktop installation, even when I just was using Windows, just what I said earlier. I did install PopOS because PopOS back then was the first Linux distribution that had a great reputation about its NVIDIA support. So yeah, it was a great entryway to getting back to Linux on the desktop. But I'm so sad that Bluefin didn't work for you. It's causing you issues with uLauncher. What kind of issues? You know what? I actually did just install uLauncher for my i3 window manager. For my workstation, I have been using uLauncher on my laptop, which runs on Wayland, and my workstation here runs on X11 because of NVIDIA. And as you can see here, I just installed uLauncher earlier today, so I'm just a reboot away from running uLauncher in my i3 setup here as well. So I'll be able to give you feedback from both the X11 and the Wayland side of things. So I'll definitely try and give you a hand there to resolve the issues that you are experiencing. Not being able to install it. Maybe I need to catch up on Discord first and see why that's the case. Did you try DNF install uLauncher? Because that's exactly what I did. And that seems to do the trick. On well, on Bluefin, it's of course RPM OS tree install uLauncher. You always need to replace DNF with RPM or OS tree on these atomic distributions, but other than that, that should work. If it doesn't work on my X11 workstation here, I'll definitely let you know if there is some issue that I'm running into myself. Okay, yes, you can't use DNF on the atomic distributions. DNF simply doesn't work, I think. What happens if I try and run DNF here? DNF... DNF search might actually work. Oh, yeah. Colmac. Search. uLauncher? No, what happens is, it tells me... let me get you out of the way here. What it does tell me is, it says, note, this system is image-based, so RPM OS tree based. Package search is not yet implemented. That's actually not true anymore, because I can actually do RPM OS tree search by now. That got added a few weeks ago. RPM OS tree. That's the technology that manages your system packages on the atomic Linux distributions, such as Fedora Silverblue. And by doing that, I actually get a result. And I just earlier did RPM OS tree install uLauncher, and that got it added to the list of packages in my next stage, where there were already updates in there. That's why this list of added packages here is so long. It's not just uLauncher and its dependencies. These are also updates that have been installed automatically. And so yeah, that should actually do the trick. So try RPM OS tree install uLauncher and then reboot, or simply do RPM OS tree -R install uLauncher and it'll reboot automatically. And you should hopefully be a happy camper. And yes, wherever you usually use... that gets us into how to handle atomic Linux distributions. That's not a can that I'd like to open up now. So basically, on atomic Linux distributions from Fedora, there is no DNF, there's only RPM OS tree. But you shouldn't just go wild and install everything using RPM OS tree, but that's something that you are probably already aware of. I just add it for the other viewers who might not be already familiar with atomic Linux distributions. And we can talk about those, but at another time. As they say here in Ireland, last call, there's still the QA panel over at qa.monospacementor.com. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer, post them now, because after this round I'm going to call it. Not only because I've run out of tea, but also because I'd like to start the weekend. XGT says, I'm not familiar with atomic Linux distributions, so this is great. Thank you. All right. All right. All right. So we need to do something about that. Give me a second. I should have been prepared, but it'll take just a second. Come on. Go. Oh, the iPad was out of juice. Yeah, let's do this. Oh, the Apple Pencil is actually still charged. That's nice. Hello. Yeah. Oop. Okay, here we go. The app crashed at first attempt. All right, so Atomic Linux distribution. Did I see the calculator app on iPadOS 18? Yes, I did. Yes, I did, and it made me angry. Not just because the calculator is pretty useless to me, because I'm used to using RPN, because a real calculator looks like this. And it doesn't even have parentheses, because if you're using reverse Polish notation, you don't need any parentheses. And thankfully, there's an HP28S emulator even on for iOS that is really, really nice. It's a great emulation of the real thing that you just saw, which is 30 years old by now, and it still works nicely. But yeah, as I posted to Discord, everyone is yearning for software that finally lets you use the resources that are built into the iPad, which by now has an M4 CPU, which is even ahead of the MacBooks. And people are yearning for software that makes these resources available in a usable way. And all they come up with is a calculator? Are you kidding me? I'm eagerly waiting for my Starlight tablet, which is hopefully going to be delivered by early July, which is going to be a Linux-based tablet, and I'm very much looking forward to finally having a tablet that I can use to its full extent. But for the time being, I'm stuck with an iPad Pro from 2018, and so let's use that. Atomic Linux distributions. So, if you are used to Linux distributions, you have your operating system, and let's simply paint that as a box. And you can, of course, install packages in there. It comes with packages installed anyway. When you install it, it comes with a base set of packages, and over time you can then go and add more packages on top. Or you might also want to get rid of a few again. So you might even want to do that. And the problem is, most of the time, adding packages or removing them will do what you want it to do, and you get new functionality and you can do new stuff, or you get a little bit of disk space back that you can use for better purposes. But sometimes things happen, like what happened to Linus Sebastian on LTT when he tried to install Steam, and it deinstalled his whole desktop environment. And so the old package-based system has its downsides, and the atomic Linux distributions try to improve on those. What an atomic Linux distribution does is you have your operating system, but packages are compartmentalized in what you could call stages or versions, or containers is the wrong word. I'd stick with stages or versions. So you start out with a bunch of packages that come with your base distribution. And if you want, for example, to add packages on that, you can actually not change this current set anymore. That's what's meant by atomic. Once this set is built, it can't be changed anymore, and that's why previously these Linux distributions were called immutable. But of course, they are not immutable in the more general sense. Of course, you can make changes to your operating system. The only thing that happens is that RPM OS tree, so over here in the old system we had DNF, and over here in the new system we have RPM OS tree. RPM OS tree will simply open a new stage where we have the same packages as before, but now there's also uLauncher. And that's your current Linux distribution. So if you look at the output of RPM OS tree status, then you can see that this version here has this ball in front of it. That's my current operating system version. There's an older one down here, and up here there's a newer one that's already being prepared, which has uLauncher in its list, which my current one and the previous one didn't. Now there's also uLauncher in there, and also a lot of updates to the existing packages. This new version will only be enabled when I reboot. So once I reboot, this one becomes the current operating system version, and only now I have uLauncher available. And should this new version have any kind of issues, maybe uLauncher introduced issues, or the latest NVIDIA driver that got installed in the meantime, I can always use the boot menu to go back and again, make my previous version that is obviously working my currently running operating system. It won't have U-Launcher, mind you, but at least it's working. And if I want to get rid of the new version altogether, I can actually issue the command rpm-ostree rollback, which will completely remove that newer stage here, which I should actually get on screen for you again. So if I want to get rid of that new distribution here completely, then I can simply do an rpm-ostree rollback, and it's gone. And if there were some issues, maybe I'll try another update in a week or so, hoping that the issues had been fixed by then. And so that's the main difference for atomic Linux distributions. You can only change a future version of your operating system, not your currently running one. And you are able to always go back to an earlier version or even roll back to an older version, eliminating the newer ones. And that's really, really so much more safe in terms of running a stable Linux workstation. I actually went and installed Bluefin even for my son's laptop, because Bluefin actually does these upgrades automatically in the background. So every time basically he reboots his laptop, he gets the latest version of Bluefin with all updates installed, and I don't have to do any maintenance work. That's amazing. And I don't have to be afraid. I mean, you could always run on a regular version of Fedora workstation. You could always run DNF upgrade in a cron job or something, but that will affect the currently running system, which might already have problematic consequences. And especially after a reboot, when the new kernel becomes enabled and things like that, the machine might not even start up again. And with rpm-ostree, he might actually come carrying his laptop telling me I've switched it on and things don't work anymore. And then I'll always be able to go into the boot menu, restart the previous version, and make him a happy camper, or even roll back the latest version, hoping that things will be fixed in a few days' time. If you take a look at my list of installed packages, or as it says, layered packages, that list is pretty small. And this is only packages that I installed on top of the base image, because as you can see, we are actually working with images. The operating system gets installed from an OCI container that gets pulled from a container registry. And after that, installing that latest image, my layered package list gets applied on top. So every time we get a new image from Bluefin, the list of layered packages gets applied on top. So I get i3 as my window manager and a few utilities I need related to it. I get Alacrity as my terminal and one password, because that manages all my secrets. And that list is all I install on top of that, and it's recommended to keep this list of layered packages as short as possible. Those are basically packages that I need to be able to access right after starting the operating system. Everything else either gets installed as a Flatpak or gets installed via Homebrew, which comes pre-installed with Bluefin as well, or gets installed in Docker containers that I can then easily access thanks to Toolbox and DistroBox, which I'm not going to get into additionally. But yeah, so that's the main difference between atomic Linux distributions and the traditional package-based distributions. And yeah, as I said before, where on Fedora workstations you use DNF, on Fedora Silverblue and its derivatives like Bluefin, you use RPM OS3. If you can at all, install things as a Flatpak or via Homebrew or in a Docker container or in a Podman container, then choose those avenues. But if it's something where you say, well, that's really part of my core operating system, and I need that installed all the time, and it's maybe not even available as a Flatpak, as in the case of 1Password, then it's fair to use RPM OS3 install to put them on top. One more thing, just to blow everyone's mind. If I visualize things in a way where I say, okay, the pink packages, that's the base image. And then I can layer my individually selected packages on top. I can actually completely switch operating systems, or I can completely switch the underlying operating system. For example, I could easily switch from Bluefin to Fedora Kinoite if I wanted to use KDE as my desktop environment. And I can actually use the RPM OS3 command for that as well. I tell my system RPM OS3 rebase to Fedora Kinoite, and what will happen is it'll download the Kinoite base image. So let's use a different color for that, with a completely different set of packages. Mainly, it won't have any GNOME packages, such as Bluefin does, but lots of KDE packages instead. And then it'll simply apply my layer packages on top again. And that will be identical to what we had before. So this and this is exactly going to be the same. So we'll still have my list of 20 or so layered packages on top, which means now I have Fedora Kinoite with KDE and all kinds of KDE applications, and still there will be packages for me providing me with i3 as my window manager. 1Password will still be there, uLauncher will still be there, all these things. Being able to rebase an operating system or rebase my individual changes on operating system images, that really blew my mind. And I hope it did yours too. All right then, that concludes today's office hour. If you have more questions, I would recommend you join our Discord. You can always ask your questions there and meet lots of friendly people. Of course, again, the server room is definitely also a great place to ask your questions, because there people are really focused on helping each other grow, and we take time to write sensible answers and stuff like that. And so those are two great options for you if you want to ask questions that I didn't get to yet. Next week, I'll do another office hour on Friday again. I definitely won't be able to do a live stream on Tuesday because I'll be in Berlin for StackConf on Tuesday and Wednesday. And depending on how much that breaks me again, there might be a live coding stream on Thursday afternoon, or there might not be. I'm not sure yet. We'll see about that. I'm pretty confident and optimistic that I'll be able to do another live office hour on Friday, though. So, if we don't see each other in Discord or on the server room, then maybe on one of my streams next week. And let's see, maybe we can actually go and raid someone. What do you think? Let me see. Go to Twitch. Who's there? Oh, let's simply go and raid one of our own, the server room members, namely Theo. So let me line up that raid. Ooh, the raiding interface has changed. And it's confusing me. Oh dear. How does this work? I'm confused. Oh dear. Okay, now I get it. Okay. Whew. Intellectually challenging. All right, so let's go raiding. Thanks everyone, and have a great weekend. See you soon. Take care.